We're still 2 months away from the Major League Baseball trade deadline, but it's never too early to consider who the Phillies might add, considering the fact that right now they have a bottom third bullpen ERA in all of baseball at the trade deadline. Will Dave Dombrowski consider a big splash and acquire a true closer, or will he opt to give manager Rob Thomson some more flexibility with the addition of a couple of different pieces, especially now with Jose Alvarado missing most of the rest of the season and the postseason? Here are 3 relievers to keep an eye on that are under the radar as the trade deadline looms. These types of conversations are really tricky to have this time of year because, for the most part, I think most teams still think they're in contention or at least close to it. Of the 30 teams in baseball, 10 are within 3 games of 500 in either direction. If you extend that number out to 6, it's 14 teams. So nearly half the league is somewhere between 6 games over or 6 games under 500. The fact that it's only late May leads you to believe that most of these teams still think they have an outside chance of competing. If you add in the fact that 12 teams of the 30 across Major League Baseball make the postseason, it becomes kind of understandable as to why teams think they've got an outside shot of making runs later in the year. Just go back to last season. The 2024 Tigers were 52-58 at the deadline. They went 34-18 the rest of the way to make the postseason. At one point in 2023, the Arizona Diamondbacks were 60-60. The point is, these teams feel like they can compete and they're in contention because of the expanded postseason. And that makes the fact that these relievers and players that they're going to move more unlikely to be moved and more valuable at the trade deadline. So teams that are hanging around really think that they have a chance. And some do. Most, though, I think are fooling themselves into not retooling or at least trading some of the assets that will further help them in the future. The second issue that you run into is that the teams that are bad, your Pittsburgh Pirates, your Colorado Rockies, those type of teams, why are they bad? And a lot of times, in part at least, it's because their bullpens aren't very good. So you're in a very small Venn diagram of trying to find an overlap of, 1, teams that aren't contenders or won't be contenders towards the deadline, 2, teams that have a piece that you're looking to acquire, and 3, teams that aren't asking for like the moon and stars for a middle reliever or a back end of the bullpen type of guy. So what I went and did was try to find 3 arms that were on teams that I think are going to end up faltering down the stretch and maybe sellers closer to the trade deadline. So here are 3 players that I think are under the radar moves that the Phillies could look into to bolster their bullpen as the trade deadline gets closer. Let's start in Cincinnati, and we'll go to their now closer, Emilio Pagan. Now, he did not have a particularly strong 2024, but he's been much better in 2025. So far, he's made 24 appearances. He's thrown 24 innings, and he's posted a 3.75 ERA. He struck out 28, meaning he's over a strikeout per inning, and his whip is below 1 at 0.88. He's also picked up 13 saves since moving into the closer role after Alexis Diaz first went on the IL and then was optioned to AAA. Diaz just did not have it early in the season. Now, Pagan's main numbers are a little bit inflated because he gave up 3 runs in an inning and 2/3 against the Sox in the middle of the month. But other than that, he's allowed just 3 earned runs in the 8 innings that he's pitched so far in the month of May. For Pagan, it's a 3-pitch mix. Heavy fastball usage. He uses it over 60% of the time, and it averages about 95 miles an hour. Now, he overlays that fastball with a cutter and a splitter. The cutter is the intriguing pitch here because it ranks 15th across Major League Baseball in comparable horizontal movement. It's his right-to-left pitch that he uses to try to get a lot of swing and miss from right-handed hitters. He uses it as his put-away pitch about 30% of the time, and he gets swings and miss on that pitch about that rate as well. So outside of his heavy fastball uses, the cutter is the next highest used pitch. The splitter he uses almost exclusively to left-handed hitters. And with that pitch, it's, I guess, his worst pitch, quote unquote, because it has the highest opponent batting average against it, but it's only 211. Pagan has been really, really good this year. He's in the top 75th percentile or better in terms of whiff rate, K rate, walk rate, and chase rate. He continues to pitch well throughout the majority of the first 2 months of the season. Now, the problem with Emilio Pagan is his hard hit percentage. Think back to last year. Remember the Carlos Estevez tightrope back at times where he gave up a lot of hard contact that resulted in outs, but you were holding your breath from time to time? It's a similar thing with Emilio Pagan. And in fact, it might be a little bit worse. Carlos Estevez last year had an average exit velocity of 90.3 miles per hour. This year for Pagan, it's 90.5. His barrel rates and hard hit rates are both in the bottom 10 percentile across Major League Baseball as well. And the thing with Pagan, much like Estevez, is that he relies heavily on fly ball outs so far this season. So for Pagan, it's not that big of a deal. Obviously, Citizens Bank Park is a smaller dimensional ballpark, but Pagan pitches currently at Great American Ballpark, which has a lot of similar features and dimensions as Citizens Bank Park. So maybe that fly ball rate is not as important as it seems on the surface. Let's stay in the NL Central, and we'll go to the Milwaukee Brewers next, a team that's 26 and 28 themselves. And we're going to go to lefty Jared Koenig. Koenig is still pre-arbitration, despite the fact that he's 31. He's taken a really non-circuitous route to the major leagues. Coming into this year, he'd only thrown about 100 major league innings. Before that, he was pitching an independent ball. He pitched in Australia. He was not drafted out of Old Dominion when he came out of college. He's taken a really long route to become a major league pitcher. But now that he's here to stay, he's pitched pretty well for the Milwaukee Brewers. He's a left-handed pitcher, which I think is something the Phillies are going to value this season, especially with the loss of Jose Alvarado. His numbers don't immediately jump off the page at you. They don't scream trade candidate, but I think he's one of the more interesting reliever candidates that might be possibly out there, considering the fact that I'm not a huge believer in the Milwaukee Brewers this year. I just think down the stretch, they're going to end up faltering a little bit. Now for Koenig, he has a 4.24 ERA, but his expected ERA is 2.24. Among qualified pitchers, that is the 31st largest discrepancy in ERA compared to expected ERA across Major League Baseball this year. Now, if you raise the criteria to 100 plate appearances, which Koenig will get to in his next outing, currently sitting at 98, he'd be 10th. So it tells you that the expected numbers, the metrics, are much better for Koenig than his actual numbers are. His expected batting average and expected slug are both within the top 4 percentile in all of baseball. Now, he's almost the exact antithesis of Pagan. He doesn't generate a ton of whiff or swing and miss ability, but he has an incredible ability this season to limit hard hit contact and keep the ball down and in the yard. He's in the 96th percentile in barrel rate and the 85th percentile in hard hit percentage this year. He's just short of a strikeout per inning, and he's posted about a 1-2 whip so far this year. For Koenig, it's a 4-pitch mix. He's another guy that features one pitch heavily. It's his sinker about 60% of the time, but he also features a cutter, a curveball, and a changeup to make up that other 40%. He's willing to throw the sinker, the cutter, and the curveball to both sides of the plate. Pretty fair, even splits. Now, the sinker's an interesting one because it doesn't have a ton of backup movement. It's really just enough to miss the barrel of the bat, as we've seen by the fact that he's not getting barreled most of this season. Jack Stearns, who's a beat writer for Brewer Fanatic, did a really good piece on Koenig a couple weeks ago about his location and why he's willing to challenge hitters in the zone with a sinker that doesn't move a ton and has decent life, but not a ton of life. And Koenig basically said it's about hiding the baseball. His delivery is funky, and it's the reason as to why hitters really just don't pick up the sinker and barrel it maybe as much as they should for its location. For Koenig, he's actually faced more right-handed hitters than he has left-handed hitters this year, but he's been pretty stingy against the lefties that he faced. He has 11 strikeouts in 10 1/3 innings pitched and has a sub .9 whip against those left-handed hitters. The third guy, and interestingly enough, I didn't do this intentionally, another NL Central arm. It tells you, I said this at the beginning of the year, I don't think the NL Central is very good, and I think it's played itself out that way, especially with the bottom 3 teams. Let's go to the Pittsburgh Pirates, and we'll take a look at Caleb Ferguson. Now this is where we kind of get to the actual bad teams. The Pirates are awful. They're not going to be buying. I don't even think they're going to stay pat at the deadline. Anybody who returns them a prospect of future value will likely be traded, and I do think that includes left-handed pitcher Caleb Ferguson. He's a very similar archetype to Koenig in the sense that they do a lot of the same things well. Now, Ferguson has a little bit of a better ERA this year. He's at 3.97, but is a 1.5 higher than his expected numbers. And if you want to talk about limiting hard contact, I don't think you want to look any further than Caleb Ferguson. He's in the 100th percentile in average exit velocity at just 82 miles an hour this year. He's also in the 100th percentile in hard hit percentage so far this year. So I went back and took a look at some of the appearances in which Caleb Ferguson gave up multiple runs this year, and there were 3. It was on May 12th against the Mets, May 5th against the Cardinals, and May 3rd against the Pirates. In the Mets games, he hit a guy, which obviously is not great, but the base hit that he gave up that allowed the runner to score came off the bat of Luis Angel Acuna at 77 miles an hour, and he just happened to beat Ferguson to the bag on a flip play from the first baseman. The expected batting average on that play was 110. In the Cardinals game, he gave up a double that was at 87 and a single that went 50 miles an hour. They had expected batting averages of .09 and 220. The point with Ferguson here is he's excellent at keeping the ball down. He's excellent at limiting hard contact, and he's done a good job so far of working out of the trouble that he has faced this year. He's a 4-pitch mix guy as well. Fastball, sinker, cutter, slurve. He doesn't throw overly hard. He uses the sinker more to lefties than he does to righties to kind of run it back in on their hands. But to me, the most interesting pitch for Ferguson is the slurve. He uses it almost exclusively against right-handed hitters to drop it in for a strike or to have it fall through the zone and get some swing and miss on it. It's got good downward action, but very little horizontal movement. It almost has that like old school, slow sweeping curve feel to it where it falls off the table and it takes just a really long time for it to get where it's going. But those are 3 guys that I think could be under the radar moves for the Phillies as the trade deadline approaches.